Montana Territory. Winter, 1887. Grace. Winters awoke to silence, the deep, hollow silence that only comes when snow has blanketed the world overnight. She lay still for a moment, listening to the soft crackle of dying embers, eyes fixed on the log ceiling of her cabin. 3 years, and still she reached for Robert before fully waking. Grace swung her legs over the bed's edge, feet recoiling from the cold floor. Dawn had barely broken, painting the snow-covered mountains in shades of lavender and gold. She dressed quickly in practical clothing for a woman who lived by her own hands. Woolen undergarments, canvas trousers, flannel shirt, and leather vest. The cabin was small but sturdy, built by Robert when they'd first claimed this land beside the lake. A single room with a kitchen area, the bed of table with 2 chairs. In a small trunk lay the few precious things she'd salvaged from the fire. On the mantel above the fireplace sat a charred wooden doll, all that remained of Lucy's possessions. Grace stoked the fire, adding pine logs that filled the room with rainous scent. As coffee brewed, she studied the wall where she'd hung herbs to dry Iro for wounds, willow bark for fever, and dozens more she'd learned from the old medicine woman. Some in Echo Ridge whispered she was a witch. The braver ones, desperate with illness or injury, still made the journey to her door. The forest fairy, they called her, though never to her face. She stepped onto the porch with her coffee, surveying her domain. The lake was partially frozen, glittering where morning sun touched it. To the west rose the pine forest, and beyond mountains that had watched over generations. The trap lines needed checking. A storm was brewing. She could smell it in the air, see it in the heavy clouds gathering on the horizon. If she didn't collect her traps now, they'd be buried until spring thaw. As Grace secured her rifle across her back and pulled on her snowshoes, she glanced at the weathered sign nailed to a pine tree at the edge of her clearing. Winter's property, no trespassing. Below it, someone from town had crudely scrolled witch. She'd left it there as a reminder of why she preferred the company of trees to that of most people. Victor Hammond's men had been pressing harder lately. 3 visits in the last month, each time offering more money for her land. Each time she'd sent them away. Her land wasn't for sale, especially not to Echo Ridge Timber Company, whose saws screamed day and night, devouring the forest piece by piece. This land was sacred ground, where Lucy had collected wildflowers, and Robert had taught her to fish. Here their laughter had once echoed across the lake, and here their memories would remain entwined with her heart. Grace checked her revolver, tucked a hunting knife into her belt, and headed into the forest. Snow had fallen steadily overnight, pristine, except for delicate tracks of deer and fox. She followed a path marked by blazes cut into trunks years before. The forest embraced her in its cathedral of pine. Here she wasn't the strange widow who refused to sell her land. Here she was simply part of something ancient and enduring. Her first trap line yielded 2 rabbits, their fur thick for winter. The second held a fox with a coat so red it seemed to burn against the snow. Grace worked efficiently. Respectfully, she whispered thanks to each animal as her father had taught her, promising to use every part, waste nothing. The wind shifted as she reset the last trap, carrying with it the metallic promise of snow. The storm was moving faster than she'd anticipated. Dark clouds had already swallowed the morning sun, plunging the forest into premature dusk. She needed to return home quickly. That's when she heard it, a human scream roar with pain and terror, followed by the distinctive chorus of wolves on the hunt. Grace froze, listening. The sound came again, closer now. Without hesitation, she drew her rifle and moved toward it, her snowshoes finding purchase in the deep drifts. She crested a small rise and saw the scene unfold in the small clearing below. A man collapsed in the snow, blood staining the white ground beneath him, crimson. His horse lay dead nearby, its entrails steaming in the frigid air. Circling them both were 4 timber wolves, their gray forms moving like smoke, closing in for the kill. The man was trying to drag himself toward a fallen tree, one leg clearly mangled. He still clutched a revolver, though it seemed he had no shots left. As the largest wolf, the alpha, made its move, Grace raised her rifle and fired twice into the air. The sharp reports echoed across the clearing. The wolves scattered but didn't flee entirely, retreating to the treeline where they watched with hungry, intelligent eyes. They wouldn't stay away long. Grace slid down the embankment into the clearing, rifle ready, eyes never leaving the wolves. "Don't move," she called to the man. "You'll only bleed faster." Up close, she could see the severity of his wounds. His left thigh had been torn open to the bone blood pulsing from a severed artery. With each heartbeat, without immediate help, he'd be dead in minutes. "Leave me," the man rasped through cracked lips. His face was pale beneath a week's growth of beard eyes, fever-bright with pain. "Not worth it. They'll get us both." Grace ignored him, dropping to her knees beside him. She quickly removed her wool scarf, folded it into a thick pad, and pressed it against the wound. With practiced movements, she fashioned a tourniquet above the gash, using a broken branch as a windlass to tighten it. The man screamed once, then went silent, his breath coming in shallow gasps. His eyelids fluttered. "Stay awake," Grace commanded, her voice sharp. "What's your name?" "Ethan," he whispered. "Ethan Wolf, an ironic name given the circumstances. I'm Grace Winters. I'm going to get you to my cabin, but you need to help. Stay conscious," one of the wolves howled.